Hey, what's up everybody, and today we need to talk about the Xbox Series X. This is a console that's now been out for around 7 or so months, and I've been noticing a lot of criticism when it comes to this console, and not always rightfully so. I'll get a little bit more into that in a moment, but I think Xbox consoles in general do get criticism that maybe other consoles don't, and I don't always think that's fair. And it's not just with the game community as far as fans either. I mean, there's always going to be toxicity within the game community, but it's also with the media. And just as an example of this, Rise of the Tomb Raider was announced for the Xbox One as a timed console exclusive, or a timed Xbox One exclusive. Now, maybe they could have been a little bit more forthcoming with that, but man, they were heavily criticized for doing timed exclusives, and really since then, they have not tried to do any big timed exclusives. It was a bloodbath within the media. And interestingly enough, if you look at PlayStation, I mean, they have been doing timed exclusive after timed exclusive with the PlayStation 5 since that thing's launched. I mean, they have announced Final Fantasy 16. They have announced Forspoken. And now another Final Fantasy game is supposed to be a timed exclusive as well, on top of Final Fantasy VII Remake for PlayStation consoles. And that's just Square Enix games. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. They have so many timed exclusives within their pipelines. I mean, they have Bethesda games as timed exclusives, which is funny because, now Xbox owns Bethesda. But yes, PlayStation has been making a lot of timed deals, and that's just a fact. I mean, they have a lot of timed exclusives in the works. Now, I'm not saying that timed exclusives are bad, because it's actually really smart business. PlayStation, Xbox, or whomever is not going to be doing these timed deals if they didn't help out their brand. People are going to buy these timed exclusives. People are going to buy consoles for these timed exclusives. Now, how many people, I'm not exactly sure, but these things work. So I'm not going to criticize, PlayStation for getting all these time deals. I think it is smart business. It's just how the media treats these timed exclusives with each platform is what I find interesting. And have we heard anything from the media when it comes to these timed exclusives? Of course not, because PlayStation is treated differently with some of the media. I'm not going to say all the media, that's not fair, but with some of the media, PlayStation is treated differently than Xbox. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. This is actually one of the reasons that I created this very channel. I wanted to talk about all platforms fairly, treat them the same. I just like games. That's just how I am. I want to play good games. I don't care if it's on PlayStation. I don't care if it's on Xbox. I don't care if it's on Nintendo. I want to play good games. And oftentimes, when it comes to gaming news, there's always that very looming effect of the console wars driving that type of content. I just think it's ridiculous. But regardless, if we want to just talk about the game community and their fans, not the media, but just the fans, there has been this ongoing discussion about Xbox having no games. This has been a discussion for years and years, as the Xbox One did struggle with their exclusive content. I mean, that was just how it was. The Xbox One just did not have the best exclusive content in the world. And now, I don't think it was as bad as what some people make it out to be. I think that there were some good games for the Xbox One. But, compared to the PlayStation 4, or now the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox One did not have the greatest exclusives in the world. But at the same time, this ongoing discussion of the Xbox Series not having any exclusive content, I think is it's willingly ignorant. I think that there are people that are willingly ignoring things that are happening right now. Okay, yes, the Xbox One struggled. But do we think the Xbox Series is going to have those same issues? And that's the part that, I just find to be ridiculous. Okay, so this Xbox Series X to this point, which has been 6-7 months in, does not have a great exclusive lineup. I think we can kind of say that. I mean, the Medium released back in, I want to say January. I thought it was a good horror game, but that's not some big, huge exclusive for the Xbox Series X, and more than likely, that game will be coming to the PlayStation down the line as well. That is probably a timed exclusive. But what we're seeing with Xbox, and we've been seeing it a lot in recent years, they have now acquired 23 total first-party studios, and that is huge. That is massive. let's not act like Xbox is going to have no games this generation. Yes, the first year doesn't seem to be filled with those games. You have Halo Infinite, that's been confirmed. There's been rumors of Starfield, that's probably 2022. And, there's also rumors of something like Forza Horizon 5, and I'm sure there's going to be some other games, sprinkled in there as well. We don't really know of those games yet. But, yes, they're going to have some games, not a huge lineup this year. But does that mean the Xbox Series is going to be another Xbox One situation where they just have, no games throughout the generation? Quote unquote, no games. I know that's not true. And of course, that's not going to be the case with the Xbox Series. They have 23 total studios. They're going to have games this generation. And some of these are very talented studios, which I'll get into in just a moment. But they have 23 total studios, and most of those studios are working on multiple games. If we want to take a look, Ninja Theory, a very talented studio. They're working on Hellblade 2, which I'm really excited about, and then they're working on Project Mara. I believe they might actually be working on a third game as well. Not entirely sure about that. And then you have something like Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian is one of the best RPG studios in the industry right now. And they're making Avowed as well as The Outer Worlds 2. The Outer Worlds 2 hasn't been confirmed yet, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're working on. So these are going to be two big RPGs, big Western RPGs coming to the Xbox Series as exclusive titles. So those are two of the newly acquired studios. And something that people aren't really paying attention to, Xbox is expanding each one of their studios. They're adding employees to these studios. They're making them bigger. They're going to try to ensure that they have better quality in the future. A lot of these studios had potential in the past as independent studios, and now Xbox is giving them the funding to make even better games. And then you want to add in things like Bethesda. Come on, Bethesda is huge. They have the Elder Scrolls, they have Doom, they have Fallout, and these are some of the most popular games, especially with RPGs, Western RPGs. These are some of the most popular Western RPGs of all time. So, again, this is in the pipeline for Xbox. You have Arcane, another very talented studio. They've worked on Prey and Dishonored in the past. Now, these games aren't necessarily the biggest selling games in the world, but they are very high-quality games. And when you bring up the topic of Xbox has no games, you need to take into consideration all these studios that are working for the Xbox Series X. See, the problem that people are having is they're just looking at the first year's lineup for the Xbox Series, and I think that's unfair. Because people don't just buy a console for a single year. No, they buy a console to play throughout the entire generation, especially the early adopters. I bought the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 knowing that they will have games in the future. I didn't buy them because, the games they had, just right now. Yeah, I can enjoy them right now, but I'm also looking forward to the future. If you look at the PlayStation 4 as an example, which was a great console, the PlayStation 4 is known as being one of the best consoles ever for exclusive titles. PlayStation 4 had a lot of really great exclusives. I just made a list of these just last week. PlayStation 4 has a lot of really good exclusive titles. But if you look at the first year for the PlayStation 4, that thing did not have very many good exclusives. It was really driven by independent games and third parties within its first year. The PlayStation 4 exclusives came really years after that. I think two of the most pivotal years for the PlayStation 4 was 2017 and then 2018, when they started to produce a lot of these really big exclusives. You had games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Detroit Become Human. You had God of War and Spider-Man all released within like a 2-year period. And I'm sure that there was more that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but it was those 2 years that was really pivotal for the PlayStation 4. And then, of course, 2020 was an excellent year as well. But it didn't happen within that first year. So, again, I think people are being a little unfair with the Xbox Series. Like, oh, well, it has no games in its first year. Yeah, it doesn't have an amazing lineup, and I definitely will say that. But does that mean that it will not have games in the future? Of course not. And there's a lot of things that you can do on the Xbox Series right now that makes it worth playing. First off, the Xbox Series is a very powerful console. On paper, it is the most powerful console on the market. So you're going to play all these great games that comes out, all these third-party games on the Xbox Series, and they're going to look great. I think like 95% of all games in the game industry are third-party games that are multi-platform. So, there's not going to be this huge discrepancy between, Xbox games and PlayStation 5 games. You're going to be able to enjoy these games on both platforms. It just depends on which one that you play them on. Okay? And then you have Xbox Game Pass. Now, I've talked a lot about Xbox Game Pass on this channel. You all know I'm a big fan of Xbox Game Pass. This continuously gives Xbox fans something to play. They're not just taking their Xbox Series home, plugging it in, and just not playing it. No, they always have something to play. And it's not just with Xbox Game Pass, which, again, is an amazing subscription service, but you also have backwards compatible games. The best place to play these older games are on the Xbox Series X, and these are still really good games. Let's not act like backwards compatibility is something not worth having. Let's not act like that. Games like Jedi Fallen Order, which is an excellent looking game, now runs at 60 frames per second. Okay? So you can play that on the Xbox Series, and it looks amazing. And then you have like all these FPS boosted games. Fallout 4, which is, again, it's another really popular game. It can now run at 60 frames per second. Maybe it's 120. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers is, but it now doubles its frame rate from last generation. And that is amazing. So I just think when you look at everything, the Xbox Series has a very bright future. They have 23 total studios now. And most of these studios are working on multiple games. I'm very excited to see what companies like Ninja Theory does. Rare, I'm a huge fan of Rare. They're now finally licensing out some of their IP. Last generation, we got Killer Instinct, and now we're getting Perfect Dark. I am super excited for the next Perfect Dark. You have your premier studios like 343 Industries, working on Halo. Then you have the Coalition working on Gears. Supposedly they might be working on a second game as well. We don't really know that for a fact, but it does sound like they're working on a new IP. You have studios like Double Fine, which are very talented. They're a very quirky little studio. They're very talented, and it'll be interesting to see what they can do with a real budget. That goes the same with something like Obsidian Entertainment. Can you imagine Obsidian Entertainment this generation with a big budget? They might actually really make something special this generation. They've always been a great Western RPG developer, but to have that budget as well, yeah, they might make something special. And then you have Ninja Theory, and this is another really special studio. Ninja Theory is really good at making single-player, story-driven content, and I think they really proved that with Hellblade last generation. And I think they did that with like 15 to 20 developers or something like that. It was a really small team that made Hellblade, and it looks amazing. So, again, if you give them the budget, what can they do with Hellblade 2? That game is going to be a very exciting Xbox exclusive when we start to see more of it. Ninja Theory is a very talented studio, and we're really going to see that with the Xbox Series X. Then you have Compulsion Games. They worked on We Happy Few last generation, and man, you know what? I actually really like that game. People always criticize it. It did launch with some bugs, but I really like the game. The story was excellent, and the world is... You're not going to find much more interesting worlds than what you get with Compulsion Games. They really do a good job with their worlds. And again, I'm excited to see what they do with their next game and having a real budget. Then you have studios like NXO. This is another excellent Western RPG studio that just finished up Wasteland, which was one of the best RPGs of last year. They're working on a bigger RPG apparently now. I think it's going to be a very high budget RPG. It will be very interesting to see what they can do with that. You have Playground Games. Forza Horizon is amazing. I'm really excited to see what Forza Horizon 5 is like. But then you also have Fable. Fable is finally coming back. Again, this is another big Western RPG. Yeah, if you're starting to notice a trend here, Xbox has a lot of really good Western RPG studios. I think they are going to be very dominating with this genre, this generation. Then you have Undead Labs. They're working on State of Decay. You have Xbox Game Studios, which is a bit of a wild card here. Xbox Game Studios is the studio that publishes third-party games, and I'm hearing that they are working on some very interesting projects with other studios. There's the rumor that they are working with Hideo Kojima. Everybody, of course, knows that rumor, but I'm hearing that they have some special things in the background in development. And then Bethesda. Bethesda has so many studios. Yeah, I'm just trying to say they have a lot of games in development, and there's going to be things to be excited for this generation. And you know what's amazing about all this? All these games will be coming to Xbox Game Pass day one. That is the beauty of Xbox Game Pass. People praise this service for a reason. I mean, not only do you get all of these great games on a monthly basis. I mean, we see all these third-party games come to the service day one. It was just last month, you got Outriders day one in Xbox Game Pass. But you also have all of these first-party studios working on day one games as well. Every single one of these games will release into Game Pass day one. That is crazy. But yeah, if you combine Xbox Game Pass with Xbox Series, it is debatably the best deal in all of gaming. There's just always something to play. Yes, this year does not have that great exclusive lineup, but let's not act like Xbox is going to have no games, quote unquote, no games. They're going to have games. Be patient. And they're going to have a very, very bright future. I think they're going to surprise people this generation, especially the people that are willingly ignoring all this. I think this is actually common information in the industry. I just think people are ignoring it. Like, oh, well, Xbox has so much to improve. Well, they do have to prove that they can make good games. But a lot of these studios have already proved in the past that they can make good games. Bethesda is, they make good games. Ninja Theory, they make good games. Double Fine, hey, guess what? They make good games. Okay, let's not act like they're not going to have any games this generation. I just think this is ridiculous by this point. Let people enjoy the platforms that they want. And I think that's the most important thing here. I see it all the time on Twitter. People, or even really my own YouTube channel in the comment section, you guys argue down there like, oh man, the Xbox sucks or the PlayStation sucks. Let each other just enjoy each other. Enjoy the platforms that you like. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. We all like games, so let's just get along, all right? We don't need all this toxicity within the game community. Get along, play your games. But yes, the Xbox Series is going to have a very bright future. I'm telling you, it's going to be a big generation. Peace out.